Welcome to the 1 o'clock meeting for the Budget Finance Economic Development Committee. Today is March 11th, and we're actually starting at 1:13 p.m. My name is Yukile Sugimura. I'm the chair of this committee, and this meeting is being conducted online in accordance with the Sunshine Law. And as a reminder, when your name is called, if you're not in the chamber, please say who is with you in the room, vehicle, or workspace, and minors do not need to be identified. I'd like to start off with Vice Chair Kama. Good afternoon.
Aloha Winola, Chair.
Aloha Winola. Next.
Chair, I'm home alone in my office except for my trusty little pets, Mary Laley, and Koa Laley. They're minors.
Member Sinensi.
Hey, aloha winala, Chair here at my home office. I'm here by myself, and there's no testifiers at the Hana District Office.
Thank you, everybody. Joining us also from Department of Management is Josiah Nishita. Office of Recovery Administrator is John Smith. Office of the Mayor, Leslie Milner. Budget Director, Corporation Counsel is Christina Toshikio. And other resources is Jeb Webb, Director of Recovery, West Coast Tetra Tech Inc. And members, if you do not mind, I would like to designate him as a resource to this item. Any objections? I don't see any objections. Okay, thank you. Rule 18A, the Rules of the Council, because of his expertise or the expertise they possess with the CDBG DR grant program. Other members that we need to thank is Committee Staff Leigh Deneen, Council Services Assistant Clerk, Peter Hanano, Legislative Attorney, Kirsten Sabato, Zabel, Legislative Analyst, James Kruger, Senior Legislative Analyst, Pauline Martin, Senior Committee Secretary, and please see the last page of the agenda for information on meeting connectivity. Thank you, members, for attending today's BFED meeting. We have only 3 items on the agenda, which is Rule 7B. We'll get an overview of the Federal Disaster Recovery Grant Funding, Bill 32, which is actually months. And here we are today looking at it and having Bill 32 for us to hopefully accept it. This BFED meeting at 1 o'clock will focus on the acceptance of the DR funds. And then, as you know, at 3 o'clock this afternoon, which is not part of this, but is part of utilization of these DR funds, is the action plan. But that is not part of the committee discussion today. That is another subject. While all testimony is welcome, we encourage those who wish to speak on the use of the funds to consider testifying at the CDBG DR Action Plan meeting at 3 o'clock, doing with resilience in mind. I want to mahalo the administration and all those who have worked to bring us to this point. I also want to thank the public for their continued engagement and advocacy as we move forward through this process. With that, we will begin. We have no testimony, so at this time, I want to start off just talking about, in general, information about Rule 7, about the CDBG DR funds. And I wonder if, John Smith, you would take the lead, or is it Managing Director?
CDBG DR falls under the Office of Recoveries Management. CDBG DR falls under the Office of Recoveries Management. So the next slide, please. And I know it may be a little bit difficult to see these buckets, but in general, we've made this slide to explain how the funding works. And in general, after the disaster, we'll have our insurance and settlement dollars will be the first thing that comes in. So insurance is first, and that's the first kind of bucket that gets filled, but it doesn't fill you, it doesn't make you whole. After insurance and settlements, we'll have some help from nonprofits, so that's the second line of buckets. And then we'll have all sorts of federal funding opportunities, and I'm going to go through those here in just a second. That's the third line of buckets, or in this row. And then the fourth line is the CDBG DR funding. So our continued recovery efforts are going to be reliant on multiple sources of funding as we go. DR is that funding of last resort that comes in and fills the bucket the rest of the way. Next slide, please. So we're not here to talk about specific projects, but I thought it would be good to show just a few of the types of funding and the agencies that we're working with for funding. So that would be that third row from the previous slide. So through FEMA, after the disaster, we work on public assistance monies, and that's to help replace what was damaged. We work with HIEMA and the state on hazard mitigation funds. We work with the EPA and the Department of Health on what's called state revolving funds for disasters. We have money from federal highways, and there are a number of other federal type programs that we're pursuing now. And then lastly, this isn't an exhaustive list, we have the CDBG DR funding. So just to give you folks an idea of all the different federal funding sources that we are currently going after. Next slide. The timing is really important as well. This is just a different look at that same type of a slide. At the top, we have the hazard mitigation funds. We applied for hazard mitigation funds. We received some from the state. And then later, and this is clear in the next year, we should receive approval for funds for some of those projects. We have, I mentioned already, SRF funds from the EPA, and you can look at the timeline for how that works. And this is all lined up together to show you kind of where this lands in terms of the CDBG DR funds. So we'll be concurrently going for funding through all the other federal programs while we're developing this action plan that you've all heard about for CDBG DR. So in general, just give you a feel for how the timelines work for recovery. Good? I'm going fast. To make this a little bit more easy to understand, I guess, I thought just one example would be good. We have water supply and Deputy Director Landgraf, thank you for being here. He let us borrow this project. So this is one of their projects, and it's a project to develop more water in West Maui. It's 4 different wells. The project overall is about $128 million. So we identified that this project will be really good for hazard mitigation because it'll help bring more water to West Maui, both for fighting fires and to build more housing units. So we went for the hazard mitigation funds first. We applied and we didn't get them for that project. We are currently applying and seeking SRF funding for this exact same project. After we've exhausted those 2 funds and we don't find any more, then we have a possibility of using the CDBG DR funds to fund that type of a project. So I just wanted to give you how that's working in real life for a real project on the west side. Next slide, please. So that was a good example from an infrastructure project. We can also use the funds for housing. We can use it for additional mitigation activities. We can use it for public services to help with economic losses, for workforce development programs. And the action plan spells out how these programs will be developed. So just to give you a feel for how the pots of programs that we're developing right now within the CDBG funds. Next slide. And then it's important to note that there's a number of things that we can't use the funds for. So we can't use the funds for things that are unrelated to the disaster. We can't replace federal funds, so we need to go for these other federal funding sources first. So we can't just say, hey, we're only going to use DR for that specific project. We have to go for the other funds first. And then there are a number of activities under the CDBG DR program that HUD controls. So HUD says these are the types of things you can spend money on. And that's a pretty restrictive list. So we'll we'll always have to go back to HUD and say, is this okay to spend this money on? Next slide, please. And there's another little quirk in this program that everyone, we want to explain is that we can't, at this stage in the game, we're developing the action plan, we are developing the programs that things fall under. We can't identify like a project that we're going to fund. That's not where we are in this stage of funding. We're identifying the programs themselves. Next slide. So it was mentioned already. Thank you, Chair, for mentioning it. At 3 o'clock today, we have a public hearing. This one's online. We have another meeting on Friday at the Cameron Center in person. We had one last Saturday at the elementary school in Lahaina. So we're going through the public action plan public hearings right now, and we are taking all that input, and all the input that we're getting during those meetings, that's where this plan gets shaped by the community. So that becomes part of the plan. So we're not here today to go through the plan and to take comments on it. We're here to just explain where we are in the process. And then the next part of our presentation, I think that was the last slide in this one, is where we get into the budget amendment itself. So we just wanted to give an overview of how we're using federal funds and where CDBG-DR fits in before we got into the budget amendment itself. Thank you, Chair. And then if...
Thank you very much, John, for the presentation. Thank you, members, for allowing us to be here today. I just wanted to highlight for you, because it's going to be really key for council, and we'll get into this a little bit more in the next one too, but it's very important to highlight what John talked about on the choice limiting action, but not projects, because of the choice limiting actions established by HUD. And you know, the piece of this that's going to be really important for council in terms of the checks and balance, and how the administration can utilize the money, as well as how we can ensure that the community is protected in this and whatnot, will be, of course, collaboration and coordination between both of our branches of government. But also HUD is going to play a very critical role in this, in governing the expenditures and the programs, as well as helping us to, you know, provide that checks and balance in their overall regulations and requirements for the funding. So that will be, but the public assistance and hazard mitigation grant programs would be larger buckets that would require the county to expend the money up front and seek reimbursement later. So I know that was a question posed previously, and I just wanted to highlight that for the members. Thank you, and of course, we're available to answer any questions or proceed on if that's the council's desire.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, you want to say something?
No, Chair, if you have a question on this first section, I'd be happy to answer it. Or we can move this first section. I'd be happy to answer it. Or we can move through the next phase.
So I think what I'm going to do, and tell me if this makes sense with your presentation, is that we'll stop here.
Thank you for allowing me to do it that way.
Okay.
Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
And I do think it'll save us a little bit of time.
Okay.
So, slide 1. I probably just screwed everybody up. I'm sorry. Okay, next slide. I think everybody's seen the amount, but the disaster relief supplemental appropriation was approved in December of last year and appropriated by HUD at $1.639381 billion. That's the letter from HUD, the official letter. Next slide. We talked a little bit about the programs, and this gives you a feel for the size of the programs. This is what's in the draft action plan today. Of course, we're taking public comment on this right now, so it could shift based on those comments, but this is our best approximation of the outstanding need and how to use the fund. Next slide. This is a simple recap of the programs that are in that pie chart. So within the housing program, the really big one, we have a single-family homeowner reconstruction program, a multifamily rental housing reconstruction program. We're creating new housing opportunities for renters because of how many renters were a part of the disaster. We are planning to do infrastructure and public facilities projects, public services. That's the kind of projects that aren't building, that helps Kapuna or helps with workforce development or economic development. And then mitigation is a requirement by HUD to do a chunk of 15% of the fund has to go towards mitigation. Next. Again, this is where we are in the timeline. We are in the community engagement piece. This is a really important slide in that the $81,969,000 has been recommended for approval already by HUD. So we sent them we said, hey, 5% of these funds go towards the administration. That's what will pay salaries, consulting fees, rentals, et cetera. That's been already recommended for approval by HUD staff. And today's action would allow us to come into the agreement with HUD to start drawing down on that fund. It's also there are a lot of questions on how secure the funds are, and I think it's a really good indication, the 82 million, that's 5% of the 1.6, another strong indication that the money's there. How will the grant be managed? So I started off by saying it's under the Office of Recovery. We're setting up our office to manage the grant through the DR program office. All the policies and procedures will be developed after the action plan has gone in, which basically means the eligibility and intake portion where people are to figure out if they qualify for this program. That'll happen. We're shooting for this summer, but this is where we are in the stage right now is setting up the architecture of the program, so to speak, under the Office of Recovery. There is a ton of oversight and compliance and regulation tracking and reporting requirements through HUD, and we'll talk about that in a second. I know you can't read this slide, but this was included, and we're gonna zoom in to this organizational chart. So don't try to read the first one. But this is the overall organizational chart with, can you go back once? So we'll just go into 4 sections. We'll do the far left, then we'll do the 2 middle sections, and then we'll go to the far right. So next slide. These are positions that will be funded by CDBG-DR that will be integrated with Office of Recovery staff. So they are like technical positions to help us with the technical sides of the program. Positions like engineers, program specialists, folks that can help us with buyback programs and GIS type activities. Next slide. We're setting up an entire section of finance. So basically like a CFO over CDBG-DR. So that's who's at the top, and they would have their internal staff, and that's the build out for that section. Next slide. This is the programs section. So each program that we develop has a pretty significant administrative burden internally to the county. So all of these positions are to help us with compliance, audit, checking in, like as a third party to check on construction activities, reporting back to HUD, doing quarterly reporting, all that kind of stuff within each one of those programs is a new burden on the county. So that's what that staff is for. Next slide. I think I'm one of the only people that really likes org charts, but sorry to bore you. The far right is the implementation contractors. So we can't do this on our own. We have, actually we have an RFP out right now for this implementation contractor. And they will be the right arm of the county as we go in, as we move into implementation. So these are firms that have done CDBG-DR disaster recovery work all over the nation. And they would help us not only set the programs up, but run some of the very specific requirements that HUD has. So that's everything on the right. So those are basically boxes of contract personnel. They don't represent individual persons, but they would integrate directly with the staff on the left side of the chart. So long story short, we're ready. We have set up the Office of Recovery to handle this, not just the CDBG-DR, but also to handle how we manage the rest of the federal funding and integrate it together so that we can maximize these dollars to make Maui's recovery as holistic as possible. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for indulging me in doing this all at once.
Very good. So members, with your permission, and I wonder if Kristen or James, you can help me through this. So since we did the presentation all at once, I think I want to take up Bill 32, which is the next item on the agenda, because his presentation covered the 7B, which is the overall, which he gave, as well as the details about Bill 32, which is bringing in the DR funds, which is the 1.6 billion. So members, if you would allow me to, yeah, okay. So we done reports. I think our council will be happy with this. Assisting us with our discussion today is Director Milner, as well as Managing Director Josiah Nishita and Office of Recovery Administrator, which they did their presentation and comments. So do we have any testifiers on this?
So Chair, we currently don't have testifiers for both the first or the second item. So we'll do last call for both items at this time. If there is anybody who'd like to testify on either item, either the 7B for federal disaster recovery grant funding or on bill
About what was being cut and, you know, what we would read in the paper and every day, Doge this, Doge that. And it left me with an urgency of, we better get this done before Trump decides to take our money. I do believe we were there when he was giving his State of the Nation address. And I think he did mention Maui once, which was good, which tells me that it is in his.
It's because they didn't sound like a lot of them are going to be local.
Chair, thank you. Well, we're going to shoot for all to start with.
Okay.
It's 56 positions that work for the County of Maui. The contracted services, on the far right, which there's not really a number with those, there will likely be a small portion of that staff that's not from Maui for that contract to include local subs and local people. So we're going to look for the firms that include the most local contractors as possible to perform this work.
Is it possible to look for those firms that might have people connected to our state or to our island?
Yes, and we will.
Okay. Okay. That's all for now, Chair. Thank you.
Chair Lee.
Thank you, and thank you, everybody, for the presentation. What is that, Chair?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, we're all concerned about the new positions, considering we can't fill the others that we have. Are there any particular limits or restrictions when you draw down funds from CDBG? John?
I'm going to ask Patience to answer first, and I'll fill in, if that's okay, Chair.
Yes.
Sure.
Mahalo for your question, Chair Lee. The draws that we take out of the admin funds for CDBG DR just must meet CDBG DR eligibility requirements. For salaries, we'll draw accordingly as well. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, Chair, if I may address, and John can correct me if I'm wrong, kind of going back to what we talked about on the reimbursable programs, I highlighted the two main ones where we would have to front the money and seek reimbursement. And in terms of that, I'm meaning like a multi-year seeking of reimbursement. For DR funds, especially for a lot of the programs, there will be a short time period, likely in the 45-day, 60-day period, that we will have to make expenditures and then get those allocations from HUD. So in terms of like drawdown, we are able to do that in some other programs and whatnot, but there will be a liquidity piece to this where we're paying for some of the programs and then getting reimbursed.
Mr. Nishida, okay, according to Schatz's office, Schatz's staff, for the most part, we will be drawing down and not working off of a reimbursement system. And that is why the action plan is critical, and that it be accepted by HUD. So it's like we send them, we draw down on a project, and that's how they pay us. Except for, you said for two? Was it, which two were they?
Chair, I was highlighting two different sources of funding, the Public Assistance and Hazard Mitigation Grant Program.
Okay. So is Senator Schatz's staff correct?
If I may, Chair.
This is a drawdown and we are not operating on a reimbursement schedule.
Please.
Yeah. So I think, not trying to correct Managing Director, I'm just trying to explain a little bit further. All of the other federal programs that we mentioned earlier, they are a reimbursement program. This program does not act like that. So Chair Lee, you are correct in that this basically acts like a really, really fast reimbursement program. So we don't have to carry that burden for a year or 2 years or 3 years sometimes. It happens in about a month. So we'll expend the funds and we'll get reimbursed right away.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Oh, that's great.
My time's up.
Member Paulton, then Member Johnson, Member Rollins Fernandez next.
For my first round, I was wondering, do we need to go through personnel to hire all of these positions?
Chair. Yes.
Oh, okay. And then have the position descriptions and minimum qualifications or core competencies already been written up?
For most of those positions, yes. A lot of those positions are specialist positions that we already have the position, so we're going to multiply it. For like the engineering positions, the GIS positions, we're basically borrowing position descriptions, qualifications, et cetera, from the stash that we have in personnel now, and we're taking those generic positions and putting them in boxes on the left side. Not every single one has been created. Several of them have been created and are already active in our DPS system.
And is there gonna be workforce development for survivors to be a part of this CDBG-DR?
Yeah, for sure. We're encouraging all survivors to go. There are jobs posted right now that are CDBG DR positions. In fact, what we found is we have about 80 applicants for already waiting for us to do interviews on some of these positions today, which is a really encouraging sign. So a lot of people want to be part of this program. So we'll look to hire from disaster survivors, but we'll also look to fund workforce development programs that will help disaster survivors for the long haul.
And I didn't get to go to the Saturday public hearing. What was your general flavor of that?
Well, I was given the presentation, so I'll let Managing Director was there, and I'll let him answer that question.
Well, yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councilmember Paulton, for that question. I think my perspective was a good one because I wasn't a part of the presentation team, so it's kind of just being able to be present more so in terms of what was happening in the crowd and whatnot. I think we had pretty good, participation, very thoughtful responses and questions. I think, a lot in terms of like thinking about programs or inclusiveness, making sure to hit, our vulnerable populations and things like that. There were some specific questions to individuals' specific situation, and then there was also kind of more group-related questions that would impact survivors as a whole. So I think it was a lot of great thinking from our community in ways that the action plan can be developed to best serve their needs. It was a good first step. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Next, we have Member Johnson, then Member Rollins-Fernandez, and Member Cook.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone, and I appreciate you guys joining us with your busy schedule. I'm just going to jump right into the questions. So we heard, just like what Committee Chair Sugimura mentioned, that the feds might be cutting huge chunks out of HUD, the personnel in particular. How do you think the HUD being dropped, losing that many staff, how is that going to affect the flow of money? Are you waiting on them to come back with their responses? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Chair, thank you for that question. Great question. Yeah, we see a lot in the news about HUD. We are working with the disaster recovery folks in HUD that are in California and in DC. They've been extremely responsive, and there's really been no disruption in service for disaster recovery. So I think a lot of what we're hearing about HUD, that's all I could, yeah. We have weekly meetings.
I'm not asking to have a crystal ball,
yeah.
But as it is now, it seems to be going well. Great to hear. I'm going to pivot a little bit in regards to, does any of this money require a pass-through to the state?
No.
Okay, that's good to hear. As far as, I'm sorry, I keep bouncing on it, but we got limited time. The personnel department, I'm just going to say something that it's just the facts. A lot of departments come and say, the personnel is what's slowing down our positions, and I know, you're having managing director there and having, Office of Recovery being like kind of a umbrella of everybody. Is that helping you move through the personnel requirements faster?
I would say yes. I think strategically speaking, Office of Recovery is in the Department of Management, and therefore
right.
Just the fact that we're adjacent to each other helps. And we haven't really had an issue with our personnel since we got started with the funding. We've been hiring this year. I think we have 10. How many do we have on staff right now? 10, yeah. So we've hired 10 out of the 56.
That's great. So now my next question is kind of following up on that. I know that when we're looking for these very specialized people, there might be somebody within the department already that you could switch over, move them over to this. But the moving over and shifting of people, then we have a puka in that department. So can you guys talk on that? Are you looking interdepartment transfers, or is it just anybody, like people off the street would be your preference? I'm curious of how you guys are managing that, because then you'd be playing whack-a-mole if you have to take from this department and then if you have to backfill, you know what I'm trying to get with.
Yeah, it's in the recovery office's best interest that the departments function well, because they're the ones that actually will implement a lot of the projects. So I literally said this in the directors meeting yesterday, we are not looking to steal employees from other departments. We may try to steal some from the state, but
well, remember the feds have a lot of people just been laid off and asked to be when I was traveling on the mainland, I saw advertisements which was like, hey, federal workers, come work for us, the state of, well, whatever, come work for us, because all these federal workers might have been laid off, or they were temporary, this whole deal. I don't want to get into it, my time's up, but basically there might be fish to catch in the federal pond.
yes, and that's why we're posting all of our positions out open, so that if we can snag a federal worker that may have lost an opportunity, we're happy to pull them in. So, we can, everybody that's watching this now, we are hiring, and we're looking for all the best people. Thank you.
And what's the website for folks to apply?
Well, that's on our standard NeoGov website at the county, and I'm not sure if...
Yeah, if you just go to mauicounty.gov/jobs, you can access it. And people
there it is, folks. Thank you, Chair.
People from council can apply too.
Okay, next we have Member Rollins Fernandez, followed by Member Cook, then Member Hodgins.
Mahalo, Chair. No poaching our council members. Member Paulton. Okay, a lot of the questions that I had were asked. I guess to dovetail off Member Johnston's questions regarding the positions. So of the 56, how many are, or like what percentage or number is civil service and or appointed? And then to follow up with that, because after these funds end, would those positions also end?
Sure. Do you want?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just start and let John add if needed. The positions would be limited term appointment. And so just as all of our grant-funded programs are, it would operate similarly. They would, I believe the specific class is like civil service exempt or something like that. So we do have certain rules and regulations we've got to follow, but there is some latitude and authority we have to help expedite some things, given that they are LTA grant-funded positions. So it helps us speed up the process.
And I'll just add, and what I was trying to explain on the far left side of the chart, and like my position too, like we do have permanent civil service positions in the Office of Recovery, but these positions are the positions that are the LTAs, or the limited term appointment positions. So I kind of, we're ramping up right now. We're not going to get to 56 this year, but at the peak of the program, that's what we're projecting. And I would also add, since we're on that subject, that we went around and looked at all the different grantees around the country, and to try to get an understanding if this was the right size for this size of grant. We think we got it right with this number. We've seen actually more positions with even a smaller grant, but it's somewhere between 50 and 100 for this size grant.
So 10 are EPs and the rest are LTAs.
56 are LTAs. There's more positions that aren't on this chart.
Oh, okay. So separate from this. So this is 56 positions.
This is just the CDBG-DR.
And these are all LTAs. No appointments.
Yeah, and so what John's position does is oversees both this kind of CDBG DR piece and the recovery program piece. So the recovery program piece is where our full-time permanent civil servants are located, and then the DR piece would be the LTA positions.
Mahalo for clarifying all of that. And I was looking up to see what the president, the impact of his slashing of HUD, and it said 84% of staffing. I'm glad to hear that it may have not affected the positions that, or the people that we're specifically, Maui County is working with. But North Carolina, after Hurricane Helene, got 1.6 billion. And so when you're talking about comparing the staffing size, the amount that they got is kind of similar to the amount that we got. So I was just wondering if you compared their team size.
I don't know if we looked at North Carolina. We looked at Lee County in Florida and in South Carolina and a couple others, but most of those are run by state agencies. So when you do a direct comparison, they're not set up the same way we are. So you kind of have to understand their organizational structure to do a direct comparison.
Mahalo. Mahalo.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Member Cook, followed by Member Hodgins.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. My question is, this budget is for salaries as well as for offices and setting up all of the infrastructure necessary to manage this for the next few years?
That's what the admin action portion of it is. That's the 82 million that we referred to. So that portion of the 1.6, yes.
Okay. Do we have locations for this yet? And I know it's a challenge. I'm not, I'm being encouraging, but I'm also curious because this is it's a very big task. Cheering you all on to fulfill this role. Filling this many positions, getting the office space and getting it set up. How are we doing with that?
So, well, I think we're doing well. We set up the recovery office before all of this in Lahaina, and then we leased additional space next door, so that's done. So we got to jump on space on the west side. We've leased some additional space in Wailuku. We are occupying a portion of the Trask building right now, and we have plans to expand there when additional space opens up. So in terms of being able to house this number of employees, right now we're fine, and we have a plan to accommodate and expand to meet the program. We'll right size the real estate part of it with managing director's help.
And Chair, if I just might note, we are in the process of securing the mental health Kukua building down on Vineyard and Market. We're in the lease process right now with them, but an item that will, and I won't talk about it too much because it will be council business in the future, but we are in active negotiations with them for acquisition of the building. And then our intent at that time, which we'll talk about more in detail later, would be for the county to acquire and then CDBG-DR to pay lease expense back to the county for to help us cover the debt service. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, interesting.
Well, thank you for the answer. This is, look forward to working with you and helping whatever way we can. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Member Hodgins, followed by Member Senensi.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you guys for your presentation. How's your guys' RFP coming along? When does it close?
It closes in about 2 weeks. I can't talk about an active RFP easily, so it's going along well.
Okay, good. That's good. I didn't expect too much detail, but that's going to obviously be a very important piece to how all of this functions. And I'm glad we talked about your flow chart. I was wondering if you made it from scratch or if you had to borrow it from somebody. So that was interesting because it's a lot of pieces, and I'm hoping we didn't miss any one position. And we can, I guess, course correct if need be, but is there a way we can leverage some of these funds?
Yes, in terms of like leverage, in terms of like projects specifically?
Sure.
Yeah. So within those programs, in particular the infrastructure programs, I think there'll be some of the more flexible programs to help us bring water, sewer, roads, et cetera, to the places that need them. And that may be the thing that's stopping a really good housing project from going. So that's the kind of leveraging we hope to do with the infrastructure funds in particular, as long as it directly supports the housing initiative.
Okay, cool. How long do you think we're gonna take to spend this $1.6 billion?
Well, HUD gives us 6 years.
Do you think we're gonna need all 6?
Yes. And I think that it's likely that it will get extended.
Okay.
But we need to show first that we can spend the money. So they want to know that we're going to spend the money down. So that's another reason we're moving so quickly. But yeah, 6 years is the term of the grant. Most grantees of this size end up asking for extensions towards the end of the grant, but we need to show how we're going to spend that fund, at least show how it can be encumbered within 6 years.
Okay, and then how long are extensions usually granted for? Like a year, 6 months?
Yeah, I think they go a year at a time. I'm looking at our technical expert. 1 year? 1 year.
Okay. All we heard yesterday is how expensive everything is. And I would assume that this would go pretty quickly, but I guess it takes a long time.
I think it depends on how far along the projects are. So, we're going to look at all the good projects that we can help that are housing projects, especially the projects in Lahaina, but they need to get through all the permitting process, the environmental reviews, et cetera, et cetera. So the timing part of it has probably a lot more to do with on those projects' readiness.
Got it. Can we use some of this funds to help with those permitting processes?
We can.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Very good. Next, we have Member Senensi.
Mahalo, Chair, and mahalo for the presentation this afternoon. I was, for those 56 new personnel, you're not going to the Department of Personnel. These are just contractual positions.
No, Chair, those are actual EPs within the Office of Recovery under DR, and then the contract personnel is the personnel that we're talking about hiring through the implementation vendor. So we'll have 56 equivalent positions in DR, and that's folks that work directly for the county, and then we'll have additional contract personnel to supplement that.
Oh, okay, so you still would have to go through the Department of Personnel to write up the positions?
Most of the positions that are listed on this chart have already been written up in terms of the description, the qualifications, et cetera. And so we can utilize those generic templates as the position description to hire in.
Oh, okay, thank you for that. And then this morning we had some discussions about some projects, housing projects, asking for affordable housing funds. So with the CDBG DR funding for housing, would those projects now go through this department versus asking for affordable housing funds? How is that going to work?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember Sinensi. Yes, I think there are two avenues that are available for some of those projects, either the Affordable Housing Fund or the CDBG DR funds. We will obviously be proposing some projects for fiscal year 26 under the Affordable Housing Fund, but if there are additional projects that aren't funded, they are eligible to apply for CDBG DR funds as long as they meet the HUD requirements.
Okay, so those under the Affordable Housing Fund wouldn't be utilizing any of the CDBG DR funding for housing?
Well, Chair, if I may, I mean, it's quite possible that a project could be leveraging different sources of funding. So while they may apply for affordable housing funds, and let's say they are qualified and selected for CDBG-DR funds, CDBG-DR, as John mentioned at the beginning, would be the funding of last resort. So it could help step in to fill, whatever difference couldn't have been made up with other sources. So, they may be a double grantee in that sense by both affordable housing funds and DR funds, or they may just be specific to one source or the other.
Okay, and then Director, are those funds going to be subject to deed restrictions? That's the other discussion we had yesterday.
Sure. So we definitely want to create programs that encourage the properties to stay with the families. So we don't want to encourage, so we are looking at deed restriction programs that would be tied to the CDBG DR funding.
And Chair, if I may, at the community meeting on Saturday, I think there was a few comments related to that, to make sure to keep that in mind and that the programs are built with those kind of thought process, so that we don't undergo some similar things that other communities have faced. And different groups are represented there too. And I think probably the most passionate comments of the night was shared by our Lahaina Community Land Trust on that specific topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So if you could, to add to your matrix, how much money, the 1.6 billion, is any of it also including the hazard mitigation grant program, and how much? State revolving, I'm going to guess, is separate because that's EPA, and public assistance. So those are the names of programs. So how much is for
Yeah,
what?
so off the top of my head, we have somewhere for the public assistance, I think that the upper limit's a little more than 200 million. The hazard mitigation fund, we know, is about 32 million from this year. Federal highways, you probably all know about the RAISE grant for the West Maui Greenway. I think that was close to 16 million. Oh, my memory's losing me. What else?
Well, then we have the SRF funding.
All right.
That is still kind of in an active phase of negotiation and whatnot with the state, and we do need them to apply to EPA for the funding so that we can access that. So with the hazard mitigation funding, they did receive roughly about $357 million for that, and we were notified that of a selection. It was identified in the slide earlier, but $32 million for an emergency generator project, of which there will be a 25% cost share too.
Okay. So there is a possibility then that with the state revolving loan, which is not part of this 1.6 billion, right? So that's like additional source of funding.
Correct. So as part of this, as part of last year's continuing resolution, where this funding came from, the DR funding, the EPA also set aside a chunk of funding to help communities with recovery in terms of water and sewer infrastructure. So that's the SRF funding. It's a special appropriation for, from the EPA that is meant to go to the Department of Health. The Department of Health administers it. Where we're administering the DR funding, Department of Health administers the SRF funding. So that is in process. It's not set yet, but what we're looking for from that program through discussions with EPA and the state is somewhere between 300 and 400 million.
Okay.
So the project that I mentioned as an example, the one that's about 120 million in the slides, we went for the hazard mitigation funds first. We didn't get them for that project. Now we're trying to seek funding for that project through SRF.
Oh, okay.
If that doesn't work, then we can go to DR. That's kind of how it works, and that's why we did that example.
Okay. So my time is up, and I think the members might have second round of questions. And do I need to make it 5 minutes? Do you need longer? No, 3 minutes? Okay. Go ahead, Member Kama.
Thank you, Chair. So according to your action plan, you have set aside for housing, and this is a plan that has to get approved by HUD, right? And your deadline for approval is?
But we'll submit it on the 21st of April, and then they have 45 days to review it.
And then they're going to come back and tell yes, no, or?
They'll come back and tell us yes or no within that 45 days.
Okay. So then here you have $903 million for housing, right? So does that housing dollar have to be spent in Lahaina and cool in the burned areas, or can they be spent anywhere?
The funds have to be tied to the disaster.
Okay.
The mitigation funds are a little bit different than the housing funds. I don't want to confuse those. So the appropriation, when we got it, all of Maui County was named. So like mitigation funds could apply to the county, but housing funds, we're going to start with Lahaina. And that's going to be the very first place, and it has to be tied directly to the wildfire. If there are disaster survivors that want to live in Wailuku, we'll have programs that they can apply for. And if, say, they wanted to become a first-time home buyer and they wanted to live in Wailuku instead of Lahaina, then they could use the program for that. If there is a multifamily project that supports this disaster that is not right in the burn zone, it's possible to support that project as well. So the funds are meant for the disaster, and we have to tie those funds to the disaster, but it doesn't mean it has to be exactly in that footprint of the disaster.
So technically, projects could apply for fundings with the intent of housing wildfire victims in their particular projects. And you don't know if they are, because they have to go through a whole pre-qualification if they're going to buy, or they have to at least say yes. I mean, so they wouldn't know if the wildfire victims are actually going to be there, but the intent is to service that. Is that sufficient?
It's the intent of the fund to help the disaster recover. Yeah. And then the way the policies and procedures are written, which comes after the action plan, that will help us determine how those funds are used and how people that are apply for them can use them. So we're in the housing pot, we have multiple programs. So some folks that lost homes will apply and they'll be eligible to just, okay, we'll help you rebuild your house. Some folks, I'm sorry, Chair.
Go ahead.
Will be able to apply to get funds to finish their project. Say they don't have enough money to finish, but they could finish their project. Some of the funds are for the multifamily units that burned as well, both the ones that the state owns and that the county owns. Or if there's a private project or a project that really, they just need a little bit more money to finish to make the project work, then we can help with that. So we'll start there. I'm sure others can add in more if you guys want, but we'll focus the funds towards the disaster as much as we possibly can.
So who's going to write the policy once your action plan is okey-dokeyed?
Yep, so we'll go through these general program pots first. We'll get that part of it approved. Then we'll run through the policies and procedures, and it'll be between our staff, managing director, our implementation vendor, HUD itself, those people that we're already working with, and our, they have technical advisors that they give us as well. So that group will run through all of the policies and procedures part of it. But the idea right now is to make sure that we get enough comments and input from the community to understand that we get the programs right. Then we can dial in on those policies and procedures so that we can help the most people possible.
So one last question, Chair. So you have to still take this out for community input and participation and engagement?
We're in the middle of that right now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Chair Lee, followed by Member Paulton
Okay, thank
and
you.
Member Johnson.
Thank you. So John, it was mentioned that the housing allocation is about over 900 million. Then you have infrastructure, 350, and public services, 90. How did you determine the breakdown of each of those categories?
So we looked at all of the data that's available today from the time of the disaster until now, all of the reports that have been done, and determined what the unmet need is. So there's a whole section in the action plan that explains how we came up with what's called the unmet need. That number is something like $7 billion. Within the unmet need portion, we looked at what is the biggest need, and then we looked at all of the feedback from the community and housing. I mean, I think that's what Senator Schatz said when this funding first came out, and we know that housing is the biggest problem, not just because of this disaster, but we knew that before. So it was fairly easy for us to come.
Okay, John.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We know housing is a priority, and that's what you're working with. It's just wild estimates right now because you're not thinking of specific projects. You're thinking of programs and priorities. So how do you expect to fulfill the needs on housing when there essentially is no water available in West Maui?
That's a great question, and that's another reason why we chose that example project. So if we can fund or help the Department of Water fund the well project, that's 3,200 units, basically. So if we can do that just on the west side, that would be a major breakthrough for housing.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I don't know, maybe I should ask Member Paulton, but I thought the aquifer was up to its limit, so I'm not sure what wells would do.
You want to ask them if
we're pumping
Seaworm
up
would
to the
let them
aquifer.
use that water?
Excuse me, please. Okay, please
Yeah.
finish.
So,
with Chair Lee.
okay, so that project has, we've actually talked to Seaworm about that project, and that's actually why Deputy Director Landgraf is here. We can get into more details if you'd like, but that project is looked at as favorable in terms of Seaworm. So the Department of Water Supply is applying for those wells right now.
Okay, is there any way you can help projects that are ready to move forward now, rather than wait 6 years beyond FEMA's expiration date for direct assistance to the people?
Yes, there is.
You can help projects now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we have Member Paulton.
Oh, I thought she was asking me because she said my name.
I was?
Oh, okay, Member Paulton.
So yesterday we heard, this horrific story of people that finally had qualified for these affordable housing, and then the builder kind of screwed them over with these builder issues where they had to pay for these improvements when it was still under a 2-year warranty. I think the one of the builders moved to Sarasota or something like that. And, you know, the meeting was about deed restrictions, and it turned into like these people realizing their dream, which turned into a nightmare. So how do we ensure, because then when they tried to come to the county, Mr. Mitchell's all like, well, they got to hire a lawyer, you know, and how do you hire a lawyer when you're barely making the payments on your dream housing? So how do we ensure that we don't get those bad actors? Can we like black mark the specific builders that already proved themselves to screw over our residents?
I mean, in short, yes, we can. I mean, the part of the reason we have so many positions is to help with in the field QA, QC while these houses and while these projects are being built, to make sure that they actually meet the standards, the design specifications that were intended to be built. So we have, HUD has built a lot of housing. And so over the years, they've learned a lot. And all those requirements that they've learned, they give to us in terms of how we build projects. And not just how we build them, how we procure. And that's a lot about, we talked about that choice limiting action. So we'll have to follow all of their standards for choosing folks that can work on these projects. So they'll have to meet minimum bonding requirements. Davis-Bacon will come into play. I mean, there's all kinds of things that will come into play for all these projects in terms of ensuring that the end product meets the standard that we set.
Okay, so if that project doesn't fix their things, I'll give you names of people we want to avoid. The other question I had is, you know, part of the Intergovernmental Disaster Task Force, we were talking about streamlining the FEMA PA process. And if FEMA PA would be like their first application and then insurance and so on and so forth, how long on average does it take to submit the FEMA PA and then actually realize the award? And will that be done concurrently to allocating the CDBG-DR funds to it?
I mean, I'll let you take this.
Yeah, so, I mean, when we're getting into PA, we're not talking about like individuals, you know, at this point, but in terms of like nonprofit, you know, like Halimaholu, for example, or yeah, or you know, some of these other like state projects or county projects or things like that. You know, on one hand, we have been getting some funding come in through PA in terms of reimbursements already, and some has been obligated to the state but hasn't been turned over to us. I would say that PA is a program that is very lengthy at times, and unlike what we've been experiencing thus far, I think with like the HUD CDBG-DR program, I think you know, that program is more so designed to try to maybe limit the amount of funding that's going out, as opposed to being so you know, inclusive to the actual need or whatnot that's happening. The PA program, we've been in some with disasters for years and years, some over 10 years, trying to seek reimbursement on. As John mentioned, you know, the DR funding is serving as a funding of last resort. And so, you know, we are seeking out all those different funding sources, such as PA and other sources, prior to trying to look to see if an allocation from DR is appropriate.
Okay. Before we go on to Member Johnson, I just want to say that I think I got a text saying that because of the 3 o'clock meeting for the action plan, that John, Leslie, a bunch of you have to leave to get set up on the computer for the next action plan meeting. But who will be here is Josiah, Leslie, and Aaron Wade. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair. We'll hang around as long as you guys need. But John and Patience do need to step away soon to get ready for the public hearing.
Okay, so when do you need to step away? It's now 2:32.
2:50 is enough time.
2:50 is enough time. Okay, so we have you for a little while. All right. So next we have Member Johnson, then Member Rollins Fernandez, then Member Cook, and Hodgins.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try to be short and respect your time, but really it comes about that idea of, we have to rebuild a town back. And there's a lot of dishonest actors out there, the disaster capitalists that make money off of this kind of thing. And I really hope the department is crossing their T's, dotting their I's. I don't know if certain amounts of indemnification is needed or anything, where you guys are working with Corp Counsel to make sure all these agreements that you're signing, all these contracts that you'll be working with are in the best interest of our people. I guess just a worry I have, I when I was in college, I read Naomi Klein's Shock Doctrine, and that really kind of made opened up my eyes to how people can make money off of disasters. I don't know if you guys are, considering that, or is that something that the lawyers have already hooed up with you on? But that's really where my kind of line of thinking was, if you guys are prepared to make sure that we don't get taken for, especially with all this huge money coming down the pipe.
Managing Director.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. There are a lot of federal regulations related to the funding that help to cover, making sure that we're touching bases on all aspects to make sure that the funding is protected and providing the best value for the resident population that's intended to help. So, yes, there's lots of different individuals and organizations that we're working with to make sure that the funding gets used appropriately. And most especially, we'll want to make sure to keep that, in good standing with HUD and whatnot, to make sure that, they know and understand that we're utilizing the funding to the best extent possible.
Okay. That's good to hear. And I want to respect your time, so I'll just end it there. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next, we have Member Rollins Fernandez, Member Cook, then Member Hodgins.
Mahalo, Chair. And I'm sorry for asking you to repeat yourself on this, but for the overview, for the public hearing and comments by March 26th, what do you want the public to comment on? Like, if the amount, so the administration, 81.9 million is set, and then the rest on this part. Okay. Member Paulton answered my question, but you can answer it too if you like, because she didn't turn on her mic.
Okay. So, that's literally what we're going to explain in this next meeting at 3:00 to those that will join us, is where we want public input on these pots. So we'll run through the details of those programs as they are developed right now, and we'll say, hey, we heard you already from all of the interaction that we've had with all the public meetings, but did we get this right? Is it housing? Is it this kind of housing program? Is it this kind of infrastructure? Is it this kind of public service program that you'd like us to develop? We think we got it right, but if we didn't, we want to hear that part right now.
Okay, and then for the economic development, is that part of DR?
Public services.
Okay, that falls under public services. Okay, that was my question. I didn't get to that part.
We have a copy of the action plan if you need it. We brought some.
Oh, that's separate.
Yeah.
That's not in here.
Oh, you're looking at it right now? I'm sorry.
This one?
Oh, never mind. That's the one you're looking at?
Okay.
Yes.
Very good.
I'm so sorry.
I didn't get
I thought you were looking at the slides.
I have both.
Okay.
You gave me both. Thank you.
My apologies.
Okay. Those are my two questions. Mahalo.
Okay. So next we have Member Cook, followed by Member Hodgins and Senensi.
Thank you, Chair. In your first presentation, you showed the the 4 wells, and I believe a tank. Was that correct?
Yes.
Will they, because water source is a variable and challenging, will they fund additional water tanks and reservoirs and potential pipelines? I mean, what are sort of the parameters that they would be willing to fund? Because that would definitely be linked to sustainable housing.
Sure. So I think we'll get a lot of questions about both water and R1 and its applicability from this fund. But we've already asked that same question to HUD. And so if this supports the water system that is on the west side, then it's a fairly simple justification in terms of the infrastructure pot to help pay for those. But again, we have to go back through the hazard mitigation funds, the SRF possibilities, and other funding sources before we just use DR on that project.
Okay, that's basically what you said. And I do understand that it's for the Lahaina and Kula area. I'm just thinking and focusing on things that could be done in the near term. Anyway, that's all my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Member Hodgins and Member Senency.
Thank you, Chair. I guess I really don't have a super specific question, but to follow up on what Member Paulton and Member Johnson were talking about with some bad actors, it's probably easier for us as a county to maybe weed them out, but more difficult for the individual future home builder to ensure that they're working with a licensed contractor. Are you guys going to be letting people know, like, hey, I know you might know your uncle's cousin's friend's brother who does a house, but maybe let's not work with them, in all seriousness?
Right, and the DR funds, and I think this is something we'll go through too in the presentation. So if you qualify for DR funds for a house, it'll be like a Samaritan's Purse type of thing where we build the house. So it's not with a qualified contractor. So it's not like we give money to the survivor and say, hey, go build the house. We literally build the house.
Okay. Okay, then. I think we talked about that, and then we talked about where some of the shortfalls in our skilled labor might be. And so I'm curious how that's going to pan out.
That's in the workforce development side of this. So while we're working on the projects that build houses, we also, through our other pots of funds, want to help develop the skilled workforce on Maui. So we want to expand workforce development type programs while we build houses, so that ultimately the best case scenario would be a survivor that learns a new trade, that works on the house, and then go live in the house. Like that, we've seen stories like that from other grantees, but that would be, the ultimate for this program.
Cool. I like it. Thanks, Chair. I'm done.
Okay, Member Senency.
Thank you, Chair. My second round of questions were answered. Mahalo to Managing Director and the staff. And my apologies, Chair. I'm going to jump off. I'm hitting the road here in a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Supportive.
Okay, great. Thanks for letting us know. So at this time, do we have more questions? Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Oh, you have more questions. Okay. All right. So I will take the third round of questions. I guess Chair Lee, go ahead.
This is for the budget director, if she's still there.
She's still here.
Okay, so just to be clear, once we approve this amendment, which is over $1.6 billion to the budget, we have no more say on the expenditure of the 1.6 plus a billion, right?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair Lee. Yes, we anticipate this would be the only amendment that's needed to recognize the entirety of the CDBG DR funds. And I'm hoping it's not out of place, but I would say that the council members are members of the public, and we would invite them to participate in the feedback on the action plan that's currently going on. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, and thank you for that, but you know, I think our role is a little different from the general public in that we are responsible for now an over $2 billion budget. But thank you anyway. That was my main question. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Member Paulton.
Going back to Chair Lee's water question, you know, we could have been working on 240 affordable housing a while back, but we're waiting for CWRM to allow people to use the water sources that they created. Is it possible to hire staff for CWRM so they hurry it up, because they wasted a year in the immediate aftermath of the fire and did not, you know, go through the WUPAs and whatnot?
If there were technical studies that were slowing them down for any of our projects, we've already actually offered to help with that sort of thing. If there are additional monitoring wells that would help them make decisions more quickly, we've offered that as well through the water department. And we understand how important this issue is, and I've been personally meeting with CWRM. Josiah and I actually met with them, was that 2 weeks ago? And we are understanding their challenges as well, and we want to come alongside them and help with those challenges.
Can you explain the challenges to us? Because I'm not aware of what they are right now.
I don't want to speak for CWRM, but I think we could arrange in a separate meeting to bring them back together with recovery to explain and what their challenges are and how we can help with those challenges.
Is there any sort of timeline as to when approved projects could move forward with their own water sources?
I can't speak to approved timelines yet.
Yeah, I mean, each project would be different, but right now what CWRM's going through is all the existing use permits, and then, you know, we'll be able to approve new use permits. You know, having CWRM here, I think would be great to have a fuller discussion on this. But I would say that I think from the entire time that I've been with the county, this is the most collaboration we've been able to have with them. And I think we'll be able to see some really positive outcomes in the future based on that.
And then in terms of Bill 103 and 104, as it relates to Lahaina, if what they had permitted originally becomes like 3 or 4 more dwelling units, would that undergo like a existing WUPA and a new use WUPA? Or how would that be played out? You know, if somebody's building a bigger house than what they originally had legally permitted, they have their existing water use for what was originally permitted, and then now they're building more. So would that be a new water use permit application, even though the county is the provider?
So is that a question for us, or is that a question for CWRM?
Well, we're going to be the
James
ones permitting larger homes. So it would be a new use. It's similarly like how we would be permitting Pulelehua, which would be a new use, right? Or different? That's the question.
Managing Director.
Thank you, Chair. Just because we have Kimo here, he can come down real quick. So I don't speak for him, but I mean, the permit itself is with like the county, for example. It's not each individual single family homeowner doesn't have like a new use or existing use permit. But maybe Kimo.
But we would be granting an expanded use.
So for, if you're expanding your house and rebuilding bigger, that comes under our purview because we can allocate water where we need to for existing, right? So the county controls all of the water that we have permitted right now. So if you build a bigger house, it's okay, we can allocate that. But it's for a new use, a new project, that we need to put in another water use permit for that. But that comes when you put the well in, or the wells.
Like kaya uluo na pili, kind of.
Yeah, so you would put in another use permit, another water use permit when you do the new source.
So expanding is not new, it's under existing.
If you're expanding something like you said, if they want to build a bigger house, that is on the existing, right? And so we can allocate, we have control over all the water that's been allocated for our permits, even though the permits are still under review right now.
So like for Bill 103, you could potentially build 4 dwelling units where you could only used to build 1 dwelling unit. Is that expansion or new use under your purview?
Well, that comes under permitting, so I guess if we're going to be, I don't know if it's expansion or new, probably it's expansion because it's on the same property, right? So if you want to put 2 dwellings, well, we got 2 dwellings now, we look at the water feature count and see if we can support that, right,
Okay.
when we go through the permitting process.
Okay.
Okay, you're good? Okay, so I'm going to take a brief recess so that we can have a change out of the resources. So thank you very much, John, for being here, and patience goes to, yeah, okay. Thank you. Okay, welcome back to the Budget Finance Economic Development Committee. We took a short recess. We're going to come back to the item. Does anybody have any more questions regarding the DR funds or Bill 32? If not, I'm going to ask for a passage. I see no hands or no questions. Okay, so members, at this time, I'd like to request that you allow me to defer the first item, which is the 7B that we did basically on the CDBG DR funds. Thank you. And then I want to ask for passage on first reading for Bill 32, 2025, entitled A Bill for an Ordinance Amending the Fiscal Year 25 Budget for the County of Maui, Appendix A, Part 1, Department of Management, Community Block Grant Disaster Recovery, incorporating any non-substantive revisions.
So moved.
Thank you. So Member Hodgins, second by Member Kama. Any more discussion? Member Rollins Fernandez.
Madam Chair, I'm supportive. I'm just making note that the Lahaina or West Maui council member is currently not here for the vote because when we recessed, you didn't say what time we were gonna reconvene immediately, so I'm guessing that she may not have known. I didn't move, so I happen to just be here.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Oh, okay.
Is that Samara?
Yeah, my
Okay.
preference would be to vote with the council member of the district that it primarily affects. Supportive, and mahalo to our budget director and managing director for
Okay.
being here and answering
Yeah.
all of the questions that we have. Stalling so that Member Paulton can sit in her seat, in her comfortable seat, and then we can take the vote. Mahalo, Chair.
Okay,
I have discussion.
okay, go ahead. Chair Lee.
Okay, I'll be voting in favor, but I have a whole bunch of reservations. Once we decide on this, it's no turning back and we have no voice going forward. So it's a big leap of trust on our part. And I hope that it works out for the best.
1,800 members and why they had it, but
Okay, who is that?
yes, not all of them could qualify.
Who's that? Okay.
Proceed. Go ahead, continue.
No, I pretty much said what I wanted to. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Member Paulton?
Thank you, Chair. I guess I would say that, we don't really have the control that Chair Lee thinks we do because even if we accept the 1.6 billion, it's really the HUD folks that are going to release the money based on the details of the not draft action plan. So once the action plan is finalized, right, then we turn it into HUD and they have 45 days and they ultimately make the decision to release the money. So it seems like this is kind of a formality because even if we had the finalized action plan and we loved it, if HUD didn't approve, the money still wouldn't be released. Is that correct?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it's all going to be governed by HUD and HUD regulations. And I would just say, and I said this privately to a member who asked me, but I will say it publicly too, is that my honest assessment, if I was an analyst again at Council Services, and I was reviewing this, because I've had to review budget provisions from the administration before, if it wasn't under these same set of circumstances, I would recommend to the council to have them split the appropriation, meaning accept the admin funds separately from the rest of the funding. In this case, no matter how long you wait or decide of when to take action, there will be no additional changes that you can make other than what is happening right now in the action plan process as a part of overall community review. The other piece is the uncertainty surrounding what's happening at the federal level. There's a lot of things happening day by day that can affect, when funding is available, how much funding is available, or the different restrictions that are at play. So really what we're undergoing right now is our quickest, fastest, most effective path to just secure that funding via grant agreement as quickly as possible. And then the third point I just would note to it is readiness. Right now, HUD, we have very great relationships with the people who are still existing in HUD. That doesn't mean that they will still be there tomorrow. That can happen at any moment. And they help turn around our admin action plan almost in record time to give us approval. But then now we're at the point where we're unable to execute that grant agreement because we don't have council approval. So what we're really asking for is allow us to accept the money. If we submit the action plan April 21st and HUD turns it around quickly and says, yes, go for it, we want to be able to sign that second and send it back to them and say, that is the County of Maui's money now. So that's really what we're asking for here today. I committed to Councilmember Sugimura committee chair, that as many times as you want me or any of our staff to come back, you want reports, you want updates, you want, anything regarding it, full transparency, we'll provide that, whatever's required along the way, but that will not change what we can do with the funding, no matter how much a particular member may want something, or even how much we may want something. It's really going to be governed all by HUD regulations. So appreciate your guys' support. I know the time feels really short, and it's because it is. The turnaround time that we have for it is really tight, and I really wish that we could have more opportunity and time to work with the community. But we're utilizing everything that we've learned over the past 56 or 58 community meetings we've had now, and further discussions from here to really shape out how this funding will get used. Thank you, Chair.
Good job. Thank you. Anybody else? Member Rollins Fernandez.
Mahalo, Chair. And I really appreciate the administration working hard to turn this around as quickly, working with our congressional delegation to secure this funding and to try to get it into county hands and control-ish, as much control as possible, as quickly as possible. I think the other thing that I would add to what Managing Director is saying is that oftentimes the council is what serves as the public interface, the transparency piece and the accountability piece for holding public meetings, for oversight, overspending, feedback and discussion. But the administration, has been doing their Lahaina meetings on Wednesdays, and I think it's twice a month now. Every other Wednesday. Once a month. And so, that piece is important because that's the transparency, the dialogue, the feedback and the accountability that generally is not there for other, funding programs. So I support Mahalo, Chair.
Great. Thank you. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, so I'm going to end with this, is that everybody who wants to have a say as to this, there's a survey that's given out. I got that on Saturday when I went to the meeting at Princess Nahinaena, and encourage everybody to fill that out, because that's going to contribute to what the action plan is or not able to do, and clarify any questions. Is that right, Managing Director?
Yes, Chair. And what's so important about that is that will get incorporated in our submittal to HUD. And, a lot of people ask us, what kind of accountability do you have in terms of we're sharing our input, and how do we know you're even taking this in consideration? HUD will really look at everything that has come in, and we'll say, for example, if our community is telling us overwhelmingly that you did not put enough money into the housing programs, or we want to see deed restriction programs, or whatever the case is, and we're not shaping up the action plan to meet what the community overwhelmingly is providing, HUD's going to turn around to us and be like, hey, what is going on? Why didn't justify to us why your community is telling you one thing and you're opting to do something else? So, there are checks and balance into this whole system, and making sure that what we're hearing from the community and whatnot gets incorporated. That doesn't mean to say that we're going to be able to fulfill everybody's wish or accomplish every single thing that everybody, wants to put out there. But it does mean that collectively as a whole, the input from the community and whatnot will be weighed against what we're identifying in the action plan to be provided. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So if the members who are listening, people in the public are listening to this meeting, where can they find that survey?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You can go to mauirecovers.org, and you can find all of our information related, not just the action plan, the draft action plan, but also all kinds of recovery information that may be needed. Thanks.
Okay. I see Member Kama has her hand up.
I had a curiosity question. This action plan is a draft, yes or no?
Yes, Chair, that's correct.
Okay, so all the pages from, I think, 30 on, all are stamped draft, but the first 28 are not. Is there a reason for that? You know how when we do drafts, all the pages are marked draft. Is there a reason why the first 28 are not stamped with draft on top?
Thank you, Chair. No,
Just curious.
the whole plan is a draft at this point, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, members, so we are going to vote on this. I'm going to defer our first item and vote on this. So, wait, I already did that, yeah? Okay, so at this time, this was the comment section, and let's vote. All in favor of passage of Bill 32, the $1.6 billion, raise your hand. Okay, that is everybody except who is not here is member Senensi left. Okay, so eight ayes, one excused, member Senensi, this passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Appreciate it. I know it's a big ask for you folks, but it's really for the benefit of our
It is.
Lahaina community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And members, yeah, so you do know that the administration will be providing us reports as part of this. That was their agreement. Okay. So anything else on this? See none? Okay, we're gonna move on to the last item. Thank you. Thank you for being with us all day. Yeah. Thank you, Deputy Director Landgraf. Thank you, Managing Director Josiah. And do you want to take a short break, or are you guys ready to dig in to the last item? I'm just going to go through our
Finish it up.
Our budget process. Okay.
Finish.
Did you pass out to everybody what the budget process is? The procedure. Everybody has this document. Yeah. It's in Granicus. Okay. All right, members. The last item on the agenda for today is to go over on Rule 7B, the procedure for what we're going to do as we take on the budget on that mayor will be submitting to us on the 25th of this month. And basically, it is really what we did last year. So in general, we took what we did last year and we put it in words for you. And so we'll receive the budget on the 25th, 10 o'clock, and the mayor's is holding a press conference. So it's upstairs on the 9th floor. And the program, budget details, budget bills, and relevant appendices will be available for pickup of all council members and residency area offices on March 25th on the 7th floor of the county building. Thank you very much for getting that ready. Committee staff will notify the council members via email when the copies are ready for pickup. 2 additional copies of the program budget and budget details will be prepared for each council member's office using a third-party vendor. Council members must request or may request 1 additional paid copy for their individual office accounts. In other words, you got to pay for it. Please inform committee staff if you would like additional copies beyond the 2 sets that will be provided via email at staff.bfed@mauicounty.us by 9 o'clock on March 18th. Once the additional copies are ready, council members and EAs will be notified to pick them up on the 7th floor. Council services, this is that confidential information that you all receive. So copies of that, please request it. If you want the confidential information, you must request it from the budget office. And you will be contacted individually to receive the information.
February.
Anybody have questions on that? No. Okay.
Chair.
Oh, yes.
Apologies. I guess
do we have to take public testimony?
Well, our staff's current understanding was that you're providing like opening comments on this, but before entering deliberations, you'll need to take testimony.
Okay. Do I have opening comments?
You just gave them.
That's what I thought. But is there more that you want me to say?
No, Chair. It's just before you take any questions from the members, we'll need to take testimony. But for your opening comments, whatever you want to review with the procedures, you can proceed.
Okay. Okay. So the fiscal year, there is a calendar attached to this as of March 10th, 2025. and the calendar makes note of the following dates and is subject to change without notice. Committee deliberations will begin on March 31st, which is the first Monday, and then it will start at 9:00 a.m. Council members should spend some time reviewing the budget proposed in detail from March 25th to the 30th, which you all know. Residency area meetings will begin on April the 1st at 6 p.m. at night. We'll continue with that. County departments are scheduled to meet with the committee daily during deliberations until April 17th. So it'll be from March 31st to April 17th. Committee decisions week will be from the 21st to the 25th. Any corrections will be discussed on the 28th, 29th of April. First reading of the fiscal year 26 budget will be held on May 16th. Second reading will be held on June 3rd, and that we must be done with all of this. Our council deadline is June the 10th. We are also providing for you budget resource documents, and this is what the administration has provided you through County Communications, and we're just giving you the links. County Communication 44-25 is Director of Finance Quarterly Report on CIP as of December 31st, 2024. County Communications 38-25, the Budget Director's Budget Implementation Report, which includes the vacancies of more than 90 days as of December 31st, 2024. County Communication 46-25 is a Managing Director's CIP Status Report as of December 31st, 2024. And County Communications 190-24 and 37-25 are the Budget Director's unbudgeted equipment requests from July 1, 2024 to September 30th, and from October 1 to December 31st, respectively. County Communications 51-25, the Director of Housing, Affordable Housing Project Status Report. Now, here's the important thing that I would like you to spend some time if you want, but the department questions. So the committee staff will prepare correspondence with a list of standard questions for all departments. Responses will be distributed to the members and updated to Granicus as they are received. Members may compile questions for transmittal to the departments during their review of the mayor's budget documents. To allow committee staff time to compile these questions into letters, members must email department questions to Microsoft Word format to staff.bfed and at mauicounty.us as follows. Questions for departments scheduled for review during the first week of deliberations, which is March 31st to April 1st, will be submitted by 4:30 on Friday the 28th. Questions for departments scheduled for review after April 3rd must be submitted by 4:30 on Monday, March 31st. Department questions should reference a budget document and include the page number. Examples are provided. For example, you can read the example, right? Where the important part is to reference the page and the budget detail where it's coming from. If similar questions are submitted by multiple members, the questions will be combined into one question and annotated with the members' initials. Administrative heads will be asked to respond to the written questions on the chamber floor during their scheduled review of the committee. They will also be asked to submit their responses in writing by the end of the same day, if not sooner. All documents will be received electronically, uploaded to Granicus, and provided via Legistar. Testimony will be accessible through e-comment. As a courtesy, departments scheduled to appear before the committee on March 31st through April 3rd will have until 4:30 on Thursday, April 4th, to submit their written responses to questions. Deliberation process. During each day of deliberation, the scheduled departments may provide opening comments before receiving questions from members, and each member will have a set amount of time to ask their questions and receive responses. Committee staff will prepare a follow-up letter containing the department's questions that still require a response. Members may also submit additional department questions to be included in the same letter at staff staff.bfed@mauicounty.us by 9 o'clock on the following morning. Only one follow-up letter will be sent to each department. Proposed amendments. During deliberation, council members may ask departments about proposed amendments they are considering. Proposed amendments must be in email to Microsoft Word format to staff.bfed@mauicounty.us as follows. Proposed conditions for economic development, environmental, and cultural program residency area line items must be submitted by 4:30 on April 14th. Those are your district pots. All other proposed amendments are due 9 o'clock on April the 17th. In addition to proposed conditions on the economic development, environment, and cultural program residency area line items, each member must submit the following proposed amendments. 1, 2 residency area increases and 5 countywide increases. Increases should be specific and include line item and additions or increases. 2 revolving fund conditions. Each revolving fund will be discussed with its associated departments. 2 conditions for county grants. Other amendments that result in cuts to the department or other non-substantive in nature may be submitted. Those will not count towards members' proposed amendments. Members should only propose cuts greater than $10,000. A summary of the members' amendments will be compiled and provided to the Commons by 9 o'clock a.m. on Monday, April the 21st. If a department requests an increase to its own budget during the department's review, the request will be tracked and revisited for a vote during Decisions Week, April 21 to 25th. Starting April 22nd, committee staff will distribute proposed draft of the departments covered the previous day and confirm the changes made with the committee and the budget director. And the last item are the committee staff. Please contact the committee staff if you have any questions during this process. Thank you very much. Kirsten Zabel and James Kruger, Jarrett Pasquale, Clarissa McDonald, and Pauline Martin. That's the memo. Yeah, it's kind of wild, yeah. But if you think about it, this is a process that we went through last year, so it's not that unfamiliar. It's been a year. Anybody have any questions? Yes.
Chair.
We have to get testimony? Okay, let me get testimony first. Any testifiers?
Chair, there's currently no one signed up to testify on this item, so we'll do a last call. If there is anybody who would like to testify on this item, please identify yourself now. On Teams, you can do that by using the raise hand function. Here's the countdown. 3, 2, 1. Chair, no one has identified themselves as wishing to testify on this item.
Okay, thank you. At this time, then, with your permission, I'd like to close public testimony.
No objections?
Thank you.
No objection.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody have questions? Shall we start off with member comment and just go down?
So we get 2 copies of the budget.
Mm-hmm.
Can we ask for one of them in PDF?
As much as one in PDF.
Will it
I
come
think
in
it's
PDF?
online at PDF, but, well,
Okay.
only the program. The detail is not.
Okay, yeah.
So James and Kristen. They want one copy to be in PDF.
Yeah, sure. I believe it should be possible to provide digital copies for the members too.
Okay. Yeah. But only for the budget, not the details, yeah?
Correct.
James?
Chair, we can check on the digital copy of the details. I think that may be possible.
Okay, thank you. Just don't want the details. Thank
Okay,
you, Chair.
That's your one question. Shirley, you have a question?
Oh, we only have one question?
No, please ask your question.
First of all, I think that April 7th deadline is a little too short because we would have had the budget only for what, we get it on the 25th, and so we have to provide all of our amendments by April 7th. Is that correct? All of our proposals?
17th. All proposed amendments are due 9 o'clock on April 17th. Is that what you mean?
Oh, 17th.
17th.
Oh, okay. And then you probably wouldn't like this, but I would suggest that these be guidelines. You know, and not rules necessarily.
So interesting. That's exactly what you said last year.
Well, guess what? I'm consistent. Yeah, because, you know, God knows what's going to come up after we make our proposals.
So you want me to make a comment?
I mean, I think we should understand that we shouldn't go overboard, you know, and we have to stay within a certain whatever is sensible. But maybe another date would be allowed to make changes or adjustments.
Okay.
I don't know.
So
If everybody's happy with that, it's okay. But I'm just saying, I know I won't be, because everything's kind of fluid, and especially with all these different funds and these different projects, who knows what's going to come up where we want to change our minds.
okay. Comments heard. Okay, anybody
Okay.
else? Or more?
Well,
Oh, this is 3 minutes, by the way.
what if we had 5 votes to
Okay,
make a change?
You want to vote on not to agree to what I just proposed? Is that
No,
what you're
I'm
asking?
I'm saying if you want to make a change, then you'd have to get 5 votes.
Okay.
Huh?
Majority
Isn't that
rules.
fair?
Majority rules. That always is.
It's not like you're going to take away anything from somebody else. I'm not suggesting that.
Okay.
It's making a change to your whatever you propose.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah?
okay. Are you guys agreeable to that?
I don't know.
Consensus? If you propose something, you
Consensus.
decide to change your mind.
I support that, Chair Lee.
Okay.
Thank you. That's just 2 of us. How about 3 more? Thank you. Okay, we got
This
4
could
now.
happen anyway. Go ahead. Are you done?
Okay. Yes, I'm done. Thank you.
Member Paulton?
Okay, I wanted to clarify how it is. So the member gets 1 copy, right? Is what you said. And then there's 2 copies. And then does the district office also get a copy? So is that, like, if you have a district office, a total of 4 copies?
I think it looks like 3 to me, but can you clarify?
Yes, Chair. So we've requested copies. Every year we work with the budget office to request copies from the mayor. So yes, we've requested we request 1 copy always for each council member's office. And then we request a copy for the district office.
And then 2 on top of that, or just 1 on top of that?
So the 2 on top of that is the 2 that we're going to the third-party vendor to have made.
Okay, and then if you want an additional one beyond that, then you have to pay for it out of your office.
Yes, just let us know and then it'll come out of your office account.
Okay. So 4 all day with a district office, free.
In a sense, I suppose.
Got it. And then the other question I had was the details when you say the confidential details. It's such a waste of paper when they black out the information. If we ask them we want the confidential details, can they just leave it in the budget details instead of blacking it out? Because don't they only give us 1 budget details anyway?
So you can answer because I know.
I mean, because
I've
if you're
seen
going to
both
just black
ways.
it out, why give us any information? You just throw that thing in the rubbish. It's like worthless.
Chair,
We can request.
yeah, that's something that we can check in with the budget office about.
Yeah, don't kill trees unnecessarily. Trump's doing enough, But, so then we email Leslie budget or we email you guys budget if we want confidential details without killing trees.
So we'll email you to provide the confidentials. So I think typically we will just receive them and then we'll make sure to provide it out to you. I think last year we did like a sign out sort of process for it. I think we'll do something similar.
Yeah, last year they gave me the packet, and I was going through and I was making pukas and swapping it out, and then I discovered like somebody else in my staff had the confidential one already thing, so I just took it from them, and then it was so much easier. So I mean, they want to be all confidential, but they're not super.
So I think, right, last year what happened was because of a copying error that it wasn't redacted. And then they corrected
Let's
it.
continue to do that for like our copy, because it's so waste time, tedious, stupid, like it's like, what is anybody gonna do with all this redacted stuff? It's poho. Like common sense.
Well,
Let's use it.
Yeah, I think they didn't want us to trace it back to a employee. I think that was why they redacted the information. But we can make that request, yeah? Okay, anything else, Ms. Paulson?
Everybody knows how much I make.
That's public. Member Paulton, you're done.
I'm done.
You're done. Member Johnson, then we'll go to Member Rollins Fernandez.
Thank you, Chair. I was hoping that I would get the confidential. So that's what we're agreeing on. It's just, for me personally, I would like that. That's just, I was going to go on the assumption that we all wanted that, but I get it that maybe some members, want for the reasons stated. But for me personally, I would like that.
Okay.
And that's all I wanted to add to the conversation, Chair.
Okay, great. Member Rollins Fernandez, then Member Cook, Hodgins, and Senency is not here.
Okay, mahalo. So if we're looking for consensus on that from myself. But my question was going to be on the budget details. So generally, I think we get 2 copies, right? But if we have a district office, do we have 3 copies?
Seems.
4.
We're going to get 1 for us,
It's like
2 for...
4 program budget and 4 budget details?
Chair, we'll check on that real quick, just to confirm.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I'll wait for him to check on that.
Are you done? Yeah. Okay. Next, we have Member Cook. Any comments regarding this?
I'm just curious also what we're going to get, so I'll wait for the answer.
You're breaking up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. No, I'm just waiting to hear what OCS says that we're going to be given. I like one in PDF because I use my computer more than paper, but I know my office needs 2, one for my office, one for my staff, and one for my field office. So.
Okay, 4 total.
Anyway, I'm looking forward to this next budget. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Okay, Member Hodgins.
Consensus, I've been told. I only have kind of more of a hypothetical utopia question. So we got the calendar from Big Island. They spend 3 days on their budget. I was just trying to look at city and county, how long they spend on their budget. Now, while I don't want to do anything more in April other than spend all day with you guys, how can we shorten how much? Thanks, Charlie. I appreciate you giggling, but I'm dead serious. This is a long time. Now we're reserving from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. I would also love to spend time with my family, my kid's birthday's in April. I love you guys too, but it's a long time. Obviously, I'm not asking for anything specific other than one day I would love for our budget season to not be a month and a half. Maybe not this year, but just someday in the utopia of budget seasons. 3 days sounds unbelievably magical, and a month and a half seems almost like what Member Paulton described as nightmare situation for.
So what day are we not to have, or let you be excused so you can cook dinner?
I mean, like every day, that's my favorite thing to do is cook, in all honesty. So if I could leave, no, I'm just joking.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, this is a long, long time. And, from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. is, yeah, you know what our salary is. Part-time, yeah, I'm not doing April. I'm cool with whatever. I'm pretty go with the flow, except I wish the flow was shorter.
So before I turn it over to, I guess I see Chair Lee's hand up, but I want you to know that when I started doing this budget, I was asked, as I'm sure Member Rollins Fernandez was asked, is to not keep everybody here, like till midnight. So we achieved that doing this budget deliberations, that we actually went home when it was still daylight.
We did, yep.
We did. And so you haven't experienced the grueling grind, but the grueling grind comes at the very end when we try to balance the budget. As you remember, when we were here, like eating pizza or whatever it was, for that, the last few days, which I can't guarantee that, that would not happen. And I will make a comment of so I opened up a PAF, and Casey, bless her heart, she went and she explored what all the other counties does. How do you like this? So I think Big Island, they get their budget, and then everybody asks the departments questions simultaneously by phone call, email, or whatever.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the process that you see with us, where every department comes, we ask them questions, it's transparent, but it was to me sounded kind of scary. But we can explore other ways if that will be like, okay, we get the budget on the 25th, and the following week, everybody study, and then we just charge forward, ask the department's question, and we come back with recommendations. I mean, that's what it sounded like to me.
I mean, I will say the very first budget we did, about midway through, we decided to go with like an amount to cut instead of positions to cut. And so that was huge in figuring out how long, because now we're not flipping through pages, figuring out, okay, what position we're defunding. So that little bit has been huge. But if there's any like tips or tricks in order for us to Hayaku would be great.
Okay.
I don't have any of them. And again, I'm cool with doing whatever. It's just,
Yeah, it does take long, but I do appreciate, I remember you contributed to that. And then we have the PhD.
That was actually Sissy Kawasaki, who was like, I don't know why you guys do this. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, she's good.
This is my point. Little tips and tricks.
Yeah.
Save time. Thank you.
We gotta hear from the masters. Okay, then I saw Chair Lee. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, first of all, I think the departments give us very long, unnecessary presentations. We all heard it before. And what we're really looking for are the changes, the successes or failures of the past budget and what's changing in the new budget. But every year we go through the same damn thing of listening to everything they've ever done in their lives, which is so irrelevant and boring. And so that's one thing, shorten that presentation that they can give, okay? Secondly, we members should not be micromanagers, okay? So let's not be talking about deleting the boots for the firefighters and stuff like that, or changing the tires on the trucks. Those things I think are unnecessary in a sense that we should be looking at the big picture, okay? The big picture to the extent possible. And Member Paulton, I didn't mention your name, so, was her with the boots.
Oh.
Okay, so anyway.
Oh, funny.
Anyway, if we go with what Member Hodges said last time on the positions, and we have the department heads talk about less, fewer things, and we ask questions that are more, big picture, I think we can get through it much faster. Okay. So those are my suggestions.
Very good. All right, anybody else? Member Paulton.
For the district hearings, is there a virtual option? Because I might have an appointment that I've been waiting for a long time on the HANA date, and I don't think I would make it in. If I go to the appointment, I won't make it out
Okay,
in time.
so we are not doing online meetings for the district like we did last year, so it's going to be same. We will have a kaku present, so it'll be filmed. Last year, you all did notes. Are you going to do the same thing? I didn't ask you that question.
Yes, sure. So staff typically, the staff who attends the meeting, they do like a summary. My understanding is that we'll
Okay.
retain that same process.
Okay, so you are going to retain that. So you'll get a copy of that the next day. And they did really, I remember for mine, Upcountry, I was very impressed, and they did it so fast. The next morning, since he's talking about HANA, then Member Senensi will report on what happened in his district meeting. And I'm sorry if you're going to miss that meeting, but we're not going to do online for all the district meetings.
Okay, I'm gonna need to be excused.
Okay. For that one, that's fine. All right, anything
Me too.
else?
I already said two now, two guys.
So you're not going HANA? Is that what you
I can't.
Okay,
Yeah, but I already notified you. And
okay, good. Next, Member Johnson, you have any comments? Second round.
No comments, Chair.
Thank you. Member Rollins Fernandez.
I will say that Member U'uhajins has benefited from a much shorter budget session.
But she
When
doesn't-
I became chair, we reduced it by like 2 weeks or something. And like part of the problem, because I watched the meetings, and part of what was happening was the council members would ask questions and the departments wouldn't have the answers because they were just asking on the floor, and so they would have to come back. So the departments would then come back. Now we only have the departments one time. And that was part of one of the improvements that I made. The other improvement that I made, and I think some of the members remember me proposing this, was setting time limits. And that was the very first time we had time limits. And I proposed 7 minutes. And that was a hard sell. It's like, I will give you 7 minutes.
Now it's 3.
And then the members, like, initially were so opposed. They're like, what? You're going to time us? I'm like, it's going to help to speed up the process so that we'll be more efficient and you'll think through your questions a little better, write them down, and be prepared. And so that's where the time limits was born. So we did reduce it a lot. A lot of the departments would give like these really like in-depth presentations. So the other thing I did was ask the subject matter committees to take up, like budget review before our budget session. And so that was separated out so that we wouldn't have that as well in budget session. So there is a lot of improvements and tweaks that we made. And I think that the thing that, that in detail, that's what I'm getting at. It was much worse before. It's better now, and I think if we limit ourselves for the other counties, Maui County gives out the most grants to nonprofits, and I think it's we go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and we actually make a lot of adjustments. The other counties don't make adjustments. Like Kauai County kind of just like stamps it through, and aren't as empowered as this council has become. That was another thing that we changed, like adjusting the real property tax rates, creating tiers, and generating additional revenue so that the council members are empowered to provide the kind of funding and support in the districts and countywide that they're hearing specifically and individually as a council member. And so that was also a really big improvement that never happened before. Council members weren't empowered to provide that additional funding to the residency area and to countywide, like we have now. That was also something that my office and I developed in order to ensure that we were really meeting the needs of the different people that we hear from. So, yeah, and then I think, so if we ourselves can, limit discussion, then the budget session itself would likely go a little quicker. But I think there's a tremendous value in understanding where funding is being allocated, especially like general funds, so real property tax, TAT, GET surcharge, the really big money, like where it's being allocated and why, and then empowering our community members to give us feedback so that we can incorporate that into the budget. That's very different from the other counties.
Okay,
Mahalo.
very good.
Chair?
Yes.
Apologies, we just wanted to get back to council. So we just went and double checked the binder order. So yes, we're from the mayor's office, we're just requesting one copy for each member's office. And then, but one set, so one program and one details for each member's office. And then we'll make another copy for each of the district offices. And then we're making two extra sets for each member's office. So it's four sets, yeah. One's going to be for your district office, and then the three for your office. Yes.
Okay, got that? Yay, all right. So Member Cook, do you have a question? That's what you're waiting for, right?
No questions.
Okay. Member Hajans.
I really have no questions. I mean, I get why we do all the things that we do. Like I said, it's just a lot. And I miss my family. And then I have to plan, like, okay, we were looking at our schedule. I have to look at my husband's schedule to make sure that he's not working from the 21st to the 25th, because that's when we do a lot of late night meetings. He's working on Thursday. So I have to plan, to like not see my family. And that's fine, because sometimes they're annoying, but sometimes being in here is too. So we got to find that balance is all I'm saying. Thanks.
Okay, and there's no member Senensi, and I think we've done one round. Anybody else have any more questions? Okay, so I'm going to defer this so we can always talk about it again. Appreciate everyone's discussion and contributions. And you know what? We have a lot of work to do. Before I adjourn, I just want you to remember that Director Milner reminded us that the mayor does not want to give us paper copies anymore from next year. It'll be only a zip drive or whatever they're going to do, and that the paper copies then would have to come from us, I guess, or maybe we can budget it so that they can print. I don't know. No. Next year.
What about the confidential stuff?
We can ask them that question. Yeah. But but Director Milner did state before and again this year that that's the direction they're going, no paper to us.
I didn't turn on my mic when I spoke to the chair. My apologies, members online. So they didn't hear what I said. I asked if OCS included the cost of the paper budgets in, or the budget books in the FY26 budget, because if that's going to happen April 2026, then it needs to be in the budget for FY 26. Even though it's going to be next calendar year, it's going to be in the incoming fiscal year. So, and it is a lot of money. It's, it's thousands because of it doesn't have to be color. Mine doesn't have to be color. I know that that's kind of like more expensive. I'm happy to have it be black and white. Oh, okay, Member Paulton likes the color. Okay, I won't speak for everyone, but I think that is something that I'm hoping that is in the budget and doesn't have to be one of the council members' priority. Okay, mahalo.
That is so funny. Oh, it's good. We could check. Anyway, anything else? And whenever your son's or whoever's birthday, let us know. Oh, April 1st is upcountry, I think. Yeah. You're not going to come. No more sweetbread for you. Okay. All right, members, I'm going to defer this. Thank you very much for a great discussion. And this meeting is now adjourned, 3:42.